Roger Bohmrich here to present this video version of my fine wine essay for Wineauctionprices.com. This episode is entitled The Puzzling Story of Premox. Is the threat over? If you're a collector of white Burgundy, Premox is a dirty word. The possibility that your prized Coton Charlemagne or Bâtard Montrachet, or perhaps one of the wines that I have here on the table, the Grand Cru Chablis or Puligny Montrachet, might be afflicted with a condition tasters describe as premature oxidation, is alarming indeed. There is nothing more disappointing than pulling the cork and finding that something is very wrong with the wine, especially a rare and expensive bottle. This bizarre disorder seemingly arrived out of the blue in the mid-1990s. Wines which in the past would have enjoyed an extended life in bottle from 10 to 20 years or longer even, were showing abnormal symptoms of aging after just a few years. What factors triggered the deep yellow to orange colors, much deeper and denser than this wine here, and the honeyed flavors that evoke oxidation? Were there larger environmental forces at play, or were alterations in cellar techniques, closures, or perhaps bottles to blame? Since the first specimens of Premox were acknowledged, an intense debate has swirled among aficionados, much of it marked by speculation and anecdote. A discussion that might seem arcane apparently interests a sizable audience. At this writing, there were more than 20,000 Google results for Premox. Vintage 1995 in Burgundy, exactly the vintage of this particular wine, is generally cited as the starting point for atypical early oxidation. And by the subsequent year, 1996, the condition seems to have taken hold across the region. Yet awareness of this peculiar phenomenon did not set in until the early 2000s. Premier and Grand Cru white Burgundies in most vintages should be in an early phase of development after 5 or 6 years in bottle, not dark in color and dominated by flavors of honey and beeswax. Individual bottles from numerous producers, including many of collectible stature, were displaying unusual and unattractive characteristics. Such was the concern that in some instances, wines which were maturing in, yes, a normal and predictable way were also deemed to be part of the problem. Clive Coates, M.W., who has authored several superb books about Burgundy, recounted an incident in April 2011 involving producer Dominique Lafont, who was lunching in a local bistro. He happened to overhear a comment from a nearby table of Americans proclaiming the Meursault 2004 they had just ordered as prematurely oxidized. As Coates tells it, Lafont went over to the group and said, quote, "This is my wine, and the wine is getting old, but it is what I would expect it to be after 7 years. Obviously, you prefer your wines younger and fresher. Please accept a bottle of my Clos de la Barre 2008 with my compliments," unquote. In matters of taste, mistakes can easily be made. The lesson in this case is that wines which are merely showing signs of routine bottle development have no doubt been falsely diagnosed as victims of Premox. One of the frustrating challenges in dealing with atypically oxidized wines is that the malady seems to strike at random. In the same case of wine, there may be entirely sound bottles, somewhat oxidized ones, and examples with full-blown Premox. It has been suggested by Alan Meadows of Berghound that the variability of natural corks, such as these, is a complicating factor. He has also speculated that imperfections in the necks of bottles may allow excessive oxygen ingress, compounding the problem of aberrant corks. Others take a different view. Valérie Lavigne, a Bordeaux researcher who has studied this particular subject in depth, said in an interview with Drinks Business that corks are just a little part of the problem. At the outset, some speculated that the changing climate in France, and Burgundy in particular, was altering the chemical composition of the fruit. The evidence, yes, is irrefutable that average temperatures have been increasing in the past few decades. Grapes are achieving full ripeness on a far more regular basis than in the past. A good thing. Viewed as a long-term trend, and in aggregate terms, sugars and alcohol have been rising while acidities have fallen. The 5 hottest years on record began with 1994, while the others are in the subsequent decade, namely 2000, 2002, 2003, and 2006, according to researchers at the Université de Bourgogne. The growing season is getting underway earlier, and very hot summer days, those above 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit, are far more numerous. This general tendency, however, does not directly explain why vintages 1995 and 1996 marked the arrival of Premox. Jasper Morris, M.W., an undisputed authority on Burgundy, has written that 1996, 1999, and 2002 are the 3 most affected vintages in terms of premature oxidation. Coates, on the other hand, claims that the main culprits are 1996, 1997, and 1998. Both reached these conclusions in 2013-14. When it comes to the perplexing story of Premox, even notable experts may have very different perceptions. It is true that changes in climate are gradually reshaping Burgundy's wines, and that the advent of Premox coincides with a period of rising temperatures. But coincidence does not equal correlation or causation. Nevertheless, Roger Bessy, professor emeritus of the Université de Bourgogne, has put forward the idea that a changing climate may be implicated and should motivate growers to take countermeasures. There are several winemaking practices which have been flagged in an attempt to explain the onset of the oxidation phenomenon in the 1990s. One is the replacement of mechanical presses at many domaines with pneumatic models which yield juice that is clearer in theory. The gentler pressing was seen to be a step forward. In practice, reducing solid matter also removes a barrier to oxidation. Those who kept older presses, such as Cocherie, apparently did not experience Premox. Another contributing cause may be excessive batonnage or stirring of the leaves. The aim of stirring is to impart greater richness in fat, yet the wine's evolution may also be accelerated. Last, the 1990s saw a reduction in the use of sulfur dioxide in many cellars. Etienne de Monty of Château de Bohmrich has said that levels were as low as 20 milligrams per liter in some cases, adding that the equipment used to measure SO2, and especially the active portion, was deficient. De Monty now ensures that his wines are protected by 40 milligrams per liter of free sulfur to guard against unwanted early aging. Science-based research has in fact gone much further in picking apart the chemical drivers of premature oxidation. Valérie Lavigne and also Denis Dubourdieu of the Bordeaux Institute of Vineyard and Wine Sciences have published a seminal paper in the early 2000s. They pointed out that this sort of oxidation could in fact affect, quote, all white wines, still and sparkling, dry and sweet, and all grape varieties and origins, unquote. They identified one volatile compound, sodolan, as the universal marker for Premox in white wines. Sodolan is derived from acetaldehyde and has an aroma reminiscent of curry. The two researchers say, moreover, that there are molecules in honey and beeswax that can be found in the telltale aroma of prematurely oxidized wines. On the flip side of the Premox coin, Lavigne and Dubourdieu single out a tripeptide, glutathione, which is present in grapes. Glutathione is a fountain of youth, it might be said, acting as an antidote to premature aging of wine. Healthy, strong vines which do not suffer hydric stress and enjoy sufficient availability of nitrogen yield must juice with high glutathione levels. Premox can indeed make its appearance while the wine is still maturing in barrel. Keeping wine in contact with the lees, the deposits of dead yeast cells, is a preventive measure. The lees have a double benefit. They are effective in staving off oxidation, and they protect glutathione. Conversely, sodolan is found at higher concentrations in wines separated from their lees. Lavigne has also suggested in more recent research that carefully judged batonnage is actually a safeguard against oxidation, as is restricting the delay before the malolactic conversion. Is the threat over? Jasper Morris claims that many of the domains who are the most effective have taken corrective action. Still, he is not ready to offer a clean bill of health. It is nonetheless fair to say that the furor over Premox seems to have subsided. Is there a similar threat, latent for the time being, which could strike other types of wines, including reds? The phenolic content of many red wines derived from the skins serves as a natural barrier against oxidation, especially rapid oxidation. This being said, there is a global trend in favor of maximum ripeness and oxygen-rich handling, with the aim of engineering richness, suppleness, and early appeal. In many regions, climatic forces are also pushing wines in this direction. Denis Dubourdieu predicted that by the early 2020s, celebrated reds from Piedmont, Bordeaux, and the Rhone may face a scandal just as explosive as the one suffered by coveted white Burgundy. Wine drinkers, it seems, are faced with an implicit trade-off. Wines, white or red, which benefit from and perhaps actually need bottle aging, as opposed to those ready to drink on release. Admittedly, most consumers want immediate drinkability. The very ethos of collecting and investing in wine, on the other hand, is bound up with the assumption that the greatest wines will have a lifespan measured in decades. That leaves us with a pivotal question. Is Premox simply an aberration, which has come and gone? Or is it a forewarning of a paradigm shift in the making? The truth is, we just don't know. Thank you, and I encourage you to go to Wineauctionprices.com to read the full essay and others along similar lines. Thanks very much.